Hello and welcome to Mr. Valentin's review for Learning Meter and Grammar Review. Today we're going to take a look at a couple examples. Be sure to have your downloaded worksheet. And if you're watching on YouTube, I have the link posted right at the bottom. If you're watching it on the school website, just scroll down to today's date and you will see the worksheet to download. So let's take a look. First things first is we're going to go over a couple different basics just to make sure we understand the meter properly. When we talk about meter in poetry, we talk about two different types of syllables. A syllable can either be unstressed, which we indicate with a U. It's this long U. It's not like a strong U. You're not like making the letter U. It's more of this half pipe kind of looking thing. All right. So it's more U than proper U. The other part is a stressed syllable. When we do stressed, we make sure it's going like that. You don't want to go like that, 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 you don't want to do any of the other ridiculous things that you could possibly come up with. All right, so make sure that your arrows are faced the correct way. If not, you'll feel a little strange if your line is going in the incorrect direction. We have learned basically four strong different types of meters. The first thing that we've learned is iambic, which is an unstressed followed by stressed. We've learned trochaic, which is a stressed followed by an unstressed. We also have learned the anapest, which is unstressed, unstressed, stressed. And we've learned the dactylic, which is stressed, unstressed, unstressed. We've also learned something known as the spondee. And the spondee is simply two stresses. And we've learned the pyrrhic, which is two unstresses. So now that we've established that, let's take a look. So we're going to take a practice with the words changes, highly, immortal, and desire. When you say a word, you want to hear some type of inflection in your voice. So would you say changes, or would you say changes? Changes, or changes. All right, it's the change part that's stressed, and the is unstressed, right? Changes. This goes for every word in the entire alphabet. Some words can be a little versatile, all right, but overall, changes would be stressed, unstressed. Highly, highly. Remember, we're counting syllables, so we're going to have 2 marks, highly, and highly would be stressed like that. It's important to remember if you have any types of suffixes or prefixes, they are generally unstressed. And the remaining core central word remains stressed. Here's our next word, immortal, 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 immortal. So we have 3 syllables. Which part would be stressed? Immortal, unstressed, stressed, unstressed. Desire, desire. All right, so 2 syllables, tricky word, desire, 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 desire. All right, we hear the zire part going up. So it's desire. There are certain words that we call strong nouns. These are generally single-syllable nouns. There's always exceptions to the rules depending on the type of meter, but overall, single-syllable nouns will be stressed. Words like wolf, snow, king. You'll really hear those sounds. This also goes for single-syllable verbs like run, dance. All these would be single-syllable words, and they all would be stressed, stressed, stressed. Then, of course, there's the weaker words. These tend to be articles, words like the, a, of, Anything like that, they're all considered weak words or unstressed words. So when you're faced with the challenge of having to complete this in its entirety, we've had lots of practice in class, but maybe you've never been to my class because you're watching this on YouTube, or maybe you're unsure, just trying to get some reinforcement. So you have a nice simple sentence right here: to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells. So we've already indicated that certain words are going to be weak. Words like the. And what you want to look for are there any actions or nouns that are single syllable? And of course we have several. We have the word swell, gourd, plump, shells. All of those are single syllable nouns and therefore are stressed. At some point you should be able to figure out the pattern. Hazel, 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 not hazel. All right, and so we have a sentence that's in iambic. Then there's a next sentence. So let's try this. What do we see? Same type of pattern. The. And. Words like beat are strong, but then we're kind of stuck. Now, maybe you just want to take the guess, but you never want to just take the guess and be unsure. So you take a look at a word like sunny. All right? Remove any type of suffix or prefix to it. All right? And you know what's left. You can stress. Sunny, sunny. Water, water, water. And so here we have a nice trochaic sentence. Now, to complicate things even more, we have all different types of meters. And you should know these, all right? They have root words, mono, which means one, di, two, tri, three, tetra, four, penta, five, etc. All right, so just make sure that you know these, all right? That monometer is 1 unit of measurement, dimeter is 2, trimeter is 3, tetrameter is 4, pentameter is 5, hexameter 6, heptameter 7, octameter 8. For a unit of measurement, it's the entire unit. So if it's an iamb, 1 monometer of iamb will look like this. If the unit of measurement was dactylic, 1 unit of measurement would look like this. So make sure you understand that that's 1 unit. Now we're going to apply all of this with a big practice. So our first sentence reads, tiger, tiger, burning brightly. If I was you, I would stop and try to answer the following 3 in a row. Now that you've turned it back on and answered these, we're going to try them together. So, tiger, tiger, burning brightly. Hopefully, you got this no problem, but remember, you could always take off your suffixes and prefixes, all right, and know that the root word will be stressed. So, burning brightly, from there, you should have been able to figure out that. Now, if you did that on the test, that'd be lovely, but it'd be incorrect. We have to give the full labeling. So you want to make sure you break them apart, you put your numbers, and so we have a sentence that is trochaic tetrameter. And you will have to write it out and spell it correctly, so please be aware of the vocabulary. In fair Verona where we lay our scene. Verona where we lay our scene. All right, so we have a couple clue words. Lay and scene are stressed. Verona, 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 Verona. where we lay seen. Make sure when you're giving your splits, you cut off correctly. If it happens in the middle of the word, be sure to cut it off where the sound is. Verona. And obviously this is Shakespeare, so we have iambic pentameter, because Shakespeare wrote only in this. And if we're talking about Verona, we're talking about Romeo and Juliet. And now our next one. And today the great Yertle, that marvelous he. So here's kind of tough, because you might be inclined to look at great. But great is an adjective, and so it really could go either which way. So this is one you really have to hear. Today. 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 The, we know that's always unstressed. Yertle. 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 Marvelous. Marvelous. He. And today the great Yertle, that marvelous he. And today the great Yertle, that marvelous he. All right, so you should be able to hear it. And today the great Yertle, that marvelous he. How many claps do we have, or how many snaps? And today the great Yertle, that marvelous he. However many claps, that's how many you have stresses. We had 4, and so there we are. Notice we cut between marvelous, and so we have anapestic tetrameter. Sometimes sentences don't end all that nicely. If a sentence ends in a stress, they call it a masculine ending. And if a sentence ends with an unstressed, and this is just if it's extra, we call it a feminine ending. So take Shakespeare's most famous line. To be or not to be, that is the question. 4 and 5. All right, and we have here iambic, iambic pentameter with a feminine ending. So you should pause the video and try the next few on your own. In the forest of the night. In the forest of the night. The night's a strong. And the rest is kind of tricky. In the forest of the night. In the forest of the night. Oops. Undo. Grab my pen. In the forest of the night. Now, you might have been inclined to put several unstresses here, but then you would have really had some strange meter. All right, and so here we have trochaic trimeter with a masculine ending. And you would have to label that on a test. And finally, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December. Whew. So this one's all sorts of tricky. The ones on your test will not be quite this complicated, but it's always good to see something. Distinctly. 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 Remember. Remember. was in the, we know that's always unstressed, bleak December. I think we see our pattern. Right? And so we have, my goodness, all right, trochaic octameter. Whew. Here's just a couple more practices for you. I'm not going to go over them, but I will reveal the answers. 'Twas the night before Christmas and all through the house. So I would pause the video, make sure you answer all these, and then turn the video on and see what the answers are. So for the first one, we have anapestic tetrameter. And now for the second one, again, I would pause the video. And we have iambic pentameter. Our next one, which reads just for a handful of silver he left us. Again, pause the video. When you're ready, hit play. And for this one, hopefully you realized it was dactylic with the trochaic ending. And finally, the last one. All right, pause the video and hit play when you're ready. And we have another set of iambic pentameter. All right, the most common, of course. So we go to our grammar section. Here we have independent clauses, dependent clauses, appositive phrases, and coordinating conjunctions. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate our independent clause with a color, and I'm going to do it with pink, and I'm going to do dependent with a green. Remember, an independent clause is a clause that can stand alone, and a dependent clause is something that needs something else to function. And a positive phrase, which I'll indicate with a circle, is something that's inserted into a sentence. And a coordinating conjunction bridges two independent clauses together. So if we have two pinks, we'd have a coordinating conjunction in the center. We have 7 coordinating conjunctions, and they are, very importantly, and, yet, but, for, or, nor, so, it's supposed to be a so, and, yet, but, for, or, nor, so. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's 7. Perfect. Great. All right, so know your coordinating conjunctions. Remember, when all these things come together, this is why we get commas. So, in the first sentence, when you go outside, is that a complete thought? Well, you'd be like, well, what happens when I go outside? So, when you go outside is dependent on another part of the sentence. He went to the game. Is that a complete thought? Sure. We have a noun, we have a subject. It would make sense if you said he went to the game. You'd be like, okay, that's great. After the party. After the party, what? What happened? So after the party's dependent on the rest of the sentence. We'd have to know what happened after the party. During the snowstorms. Again, what happened during the snowstorms? It's not complete by itself, so you want to know more information. The cook's favorite ingredient is salt. Well, that's a complete thought. Okay, yeah, the cook's favorite ingredient is salt. Cool. So, let's take a look at full practice. Again, I'm using pink as independent and green as dependent. Just as a friendly reminder. Because of her bad grades, she went to summer school. So I think it's always easier to start with the independent clause, so I would try to figure out what's the part that can function by itself. So, she went to summer school is independent. It functions by itself. Because of her bad grades, is dependent, and so our comma goes there. Again, you should be able to flip the dependent clause. She went to summer school because of her bad grades. Because of her bad grades, she went to summer school. Let's try the next one. I went to the Nike store and I purchased a new pair of sneakers. So again, we identify any independent clauses. I went to the Nike store. Yes, this is great. Independent. I purchased a new pair of sneakers. Also independent. We have the word and, which is our coordinating conjunction. And so we'll place our comma there. Our next one. I met Hillary Clinton, the presidential candidate, at the Ohio State Fair. Whew. So we know something's up with this. Now, you might just immediately underline, I met Hillary Clinton. And you wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but there's more to it. So, first things first, all right, we notice the presidential candidate is our positive phrase. I met Hillary Clinton is independent at the Ohio State Fair. And technically, yes, it is sort of dependent, all right? But for our purposes, for what we've been doing in class, we're going to label it independent. Because if you said, I met Hillary at the Ohio State Fair with taking the presidential candidate out, you wouldn't need a comma. And the last one. The Avengers, the highest grossing movie of the year, will continue to make millions of dollars, and it may become the highest grossing movie ever. So we hear a couple things. You should notice the highest grossing movie of the year is a positive phrase. All right, we have the word and, but we have to make sure both sides are independent for it to function. The Avengers will continue to make millions of dollars. Great. I mean, great for the movie, but great because it's also independent. It may become the highest grossing movie ever. Is that a complete sentence? Yes, it is. Beautiful. And so, it is a coordinating conjunctions, and we place our commas, and we're all set. If you have any questions, please see me for extra help. Again, I always accept any types of comments and feedback. Please like my videos because it's nice. If you have any questions, see me for extra help, or you can always email me. And that goes for anyone, even if you're outside the district, in case you have any questions, teacher, student, or otherwise, all right, at dvalentin@lakelandschools.org. All right, so feel free to do that, and thank you for taking the time to watch.